Welcome to In the Chute, another exciting, riveting episode. Calen, what have you got for me today?
Riveting, riveting, riveting. The process on receiving bulls. Last week we talked about actually the process of obtaining the bulls, but what is it when you receive them? So we've either gone to the place and we've picked them up and we're transporting them home, or uh, like you said in the last episode of last week was, hey, sometimes you have them actually wintered at the location. There's some extreme circumstances that doesn't always occur, but if it does, you buy in October, November for some reason, you have them wintered until early spring, and you're paying for that. But you don't have to worry until they actually get transported to you that they're actually on the place. So, what's the process of receiving those bulls after purchase? Both, well, it's a lot of things: transportation, the insurance potentially of them, the integration to the herd, vaccines, delouse slash dewormer, branding because now they're on a new ranch.
Yep.
What's the process? I kind of just did an overview of a lot of it, but what's the overall process in detail of how to receive those bulls on the ranch?
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than you think. I mean, we think, well, we just got to do this and this and this and this, no big deal, and we'll do it and kick them out. But no, you're right, there's a process to it. Regardless of whether we bring them home the day of the auction or a couple days later we go and get them, or they're delivered, either a week later or a month later or 2 months later or 4 months later, 5 months later. I mean that can happen, you know, and I guess one thing that catches my ear a little bit is when you say you don't have to worry about it, even though those bulls are not there, you're worried that nothing's going to go wrong. You got an investment there, and it's not that in your possession, and or they're in your possession and you still worry.
Right.
you don't quit worrying. I guess worrying becomes a way of life in a lot of ways with these animals. So markets and weather, and it's all a worry. But yeah, that's a very good question about when they get here. Regardless of whether you bring them yourself or somebody brings them, they're a new animal to the place. So I'll bring them in, put them into usually right here close that we have a very good sized pen. We can actually ride in there. It's not an indoor arena. We call it the arena pen, but it's really not an arena.
Right.
We've used it like that, but I keep them in there. It's where we calve the heifers up close and kind of watch them for a day or two or a week. And a lot of times we'll have that right next to where we have the bull pasture. Opens up into that. The arena opens up the bull pasture, and we'll have some of these other bulls, and I'll just kind of let them acclimate across the fence a little bit too. And these older bulls see some young new one come in, and they're usually smaller. They're yearlings, long yearlings, and
Do you worry about quarantine at all for
yeah,
disease or
that's
anything like
well,
that?
that's part of it. You do good reputable breeders. You usually don't have to worry about that quarantine issue. Those animals are well taken care of. They've got good disease protocols. They've had vaccinations, everything because they want to produce a good product. Again, a good reputable breeder. So I don't worry so much about that, but I do keep an eye on them. I mean, you want to keep them close because you never know. But if you've got those bulls on the other side of a fence that you already have, and those animals are there, they're not quarantined anyway. Really, I mean, they are there, and you've just exposed your bulls to a new bull that if he's bringing something with you, you potentially got problems.
Right.
So that's why it's very important to give for your bulls from reputable breeders. But yeah, I don't worry so much about it, but it's more about keeping an eye on them after travel. They lame? Is there some issue with them? You just kind of keep an eye on them because again, if something is wrong, um, the breeder of these seed stock animals, they'll stand behind them, and so they'll say, "Oh, something happened. This animal died within 24 hours of hitting the place, or 48 hours, or a week. We'll replace it." So and if the bull doesn't work, if he's lazy and just I mean, he's not breeding cows for some reason, and then a lot of times they'll stand behind him. They'll say, "Yeah, we'll get you a different bull." So, I mean, that is very, very important about that process. And when those folks, a lot of times they'll deliver them, and they're in a hurry. They've got a load of bulls on literally, and they're sending them to a little run of 4 or 5 or 6 different places that they're dropping them off, depending on whether they're, everybody's getting a onesie twosie bulls or they got a whole load of them going somewhere. So, or a couple loads. Um, Bringing them home, watching them. and then we run them through the chute, put a brand on them, and if they need vaccinations, our ear tags, so that they're in our ear tag system. We begin to track that animal and see what he's producing. If we can tell, sometimes you can tell by the phenotype on these bulls which bulls are are producing which calves, and so just having that and watching them, I mean, you're just managing your herd visually, and it takes time. It's nothing. Sometimes it takes, of course, from the time you turn those bulls out, you get a calf, and that calf is raised, you're a year and a half before you really see what that bull has produced from the time he showed up and was exposed to these cows. But delousing, if they've had their shots, and maintaining those shots, wormer, all of those things are important. And I like to know what they've been on, and these breeders will, they're pretty upfront about, this is what they're on, this is how they got what they were fed with. And sometimes some breeders, although they're trying to do the right thing, they will tend to feed their young bulls too hot after they're weaned. They'll feed them too high protein grains, and push them too hard to get that nice big bulk on them, at the risk of like founder issues. And so they'll, you got to be careful what you're looking at. And you know what, genetically, sometimes we got some bad genetics in our reds that show up in the feet. So you got to be careful of that anyway. And sometimes you don't see that for a year or two. And you got a problem, you got to pare that back out and try to not get in that spot again. But you can cause that to happen. It's not genetic, but it's feed induced. So being careful that you're not buying something that's really, really been pushed hard with the feed supplements, so that you've got a short-term animal anyway that you just spend a lot of money for. But getting them home, taking care of them, watching them, putting them into your system, integrating them, and then turning them out with your cows.
The one last thing I want to talk about is branding, because that is an important thing. I know it can be controversial for some people, and we've covered that many a times. The question though is, we legally do need to brand, at least for identification purposes, in case they get out, because bulls are famous for hopping fences, just the nature of the hormones and so on and so forth. What is the timeline between reception on the ranch and the application of the brand to the animal so that they're identified with the ranch?
A day or two.
Yep.
Now you're not legally required to brand your animals. I just think it's crazy if you don't identify them somehow.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
And a hot brand, and the freeze brands are all legal. They're all recognized brands, but I don't care. I want them branded. I need to see that animal is mine, and that other people can see that animal is mine. And we've had bulls get into us, and I look and I say, okay, what brand is on that guy? What ear tags? And I'll get a hold of them and let them know. I might corral them for them and say, hey, got your bull, here he is, come get him. And do that. I mean, it's good for people to be able to recognize what other people's animals look like, what the brand is, and that's the best way to permanently do that.
That's the process of receiving bulls after purchase, and getting them onto the ranch and integrating them into the overall herd. So with that, we will take that conversation and put it out to pasture.